Gaur Purnima pre-celebration. The most auspicious Gaur Purnima festival is on Sunday, just 2 days away. And for the last 1 week, we have been hearing devotees present the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Today, continuing the same, we have two wonderful devotees. Hare Krishna, Suvarna Manjari Mataji will be presenting first. Mataji will be speaking about the Shishtastakam prayers. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So before, Hare Krishna everybody, so before I start sharing screen on the verse, I wanted to share with you that today I'll be speaking from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but the chapter is entitled Shikshashtakam, and this is the final chapter from Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is said that only the most fortunate will relish the mad words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu resided in Jagannath Puri, he was continuously overwhelmed night and day by separation from Krishna. So, and day and night, he tasted the transcendental blissful songs and the verses with his two associates, Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Raya. He relished the symptoms of the transcendental emotions. And symptoms of transcendental emotions are like lamentation, anger, humility, anxiety, grief, eagerness, satisfaction. It's a very varied range of emotions when you go through transcendental symptoms. And he would recite his own verses, expressing their meanings and emotions, and enjoying the taste of his own verses with his two friends. Sometimes the Lord would be absorbed in a particular emotion and would stay awake all night reciting such verses. So it is said that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually shared with Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Raya, and he said, "Know from me that chanting the holy names is the most feasible means of salvation in this age of Kali." In this age of Kali, the process of worshipping Krishna is to perform sacrifice. And the yajna, the sacrifice in this age, is chanting the holy name of the Lord. One who does so is certainly very intelligent and attains shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. It is also said that simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna, one can be freed from all undesirable habits. All of us have a lot of undesirable habits, right? So we should take to this seriously, because simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna, we can be freed from all undesirable habits. This is the means of awakening all good fortune and initiating the flow of waves of the love of Lord Krishna. So I'm now going to share screen, and we'll do the first verse, and if time permits, we will do the second verse also of Shikshashtakam prayers. One second, let me go to slideshow. And Mataji, can you see the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is the first verse of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikshashtakam. Cheto darpanam marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam Shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadhu jivanam Anandam buddhi vardhanam pratipadam purnamrita swadanam Sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna sankirtanam. So this verse is called by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj as the seven-tongued verse. There are seven important items in this verse. Let's go through each of those carefully. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. It means you cleanse the heart, the mirror of the heart, which is dirty, from lifetimes of material desires. So what covers our heart? It is our material desires. Okay, that is why we cannot see the clean mirror of our heart. So chanting of this Mahamantra cleanses our heart of lifetimes of material desires. Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. Bhava means material existence. And Mahadavagni is the great blazing forest fire. So material existence here is compared to a forest fire. And, not that we have seen a forest fire, but we watch it when forest fires happen in California or other parts of the world, we watch it on TV and it is a blaze. It is so difficult to extinguish a forest fire. Sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes it takes months. Now think of our material forest fire that we have been holding on to, or that has been burning for lifetimes. That is not going to, that needs a very, very powerful fire extinguisher. And that is the fire extinguisher that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And like anything, nothing is going to be magic that you chant it once and it's going to happen. You have to keep chanting it and keep burning that fire. And the last word of this, Bhava Maha Davagni Nirvapanam. Nirvapanam means chanting. The Hare Krishna extinguishes the fire. So we know when there is a fire, it has to be extinguished. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that you can extinguish this fire by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The next of the 7 items is Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. Shreya means the ultimate benefit. And there are 2 phases. We all know there are 2 phases of the moon, the waxing moon and the waning moon. Chanting the Mahamantra is like the waxing moon. Waxing moon is when the moon is growing. We are right now in the phase of the waxing moon. Gaura Purnima is when we will have the full moon. So just like the benefit of seeing the waxing moon brings more light, chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra is like waxing moon of ultimate auspiciousness. So it keeps bringing more and more auspiciousness in our life. Like the waxing moon keeps growing, the auspiciousness of our life keeps increasing by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The next of the 7 parts of this verse are Vidya Vadhu Jivanam. Vidya means transcendental knowledge. Okay, and Vadhu means typically Vadhu is used for wife, life and soul. So chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the wife and the life of transcendental knowledge. You may want to read so many transcendental or Vedic texts, right? We read so many of them. But do we really absorb them? And it is not a question of scholarship. Anybody can read and become a scholar in Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam. But the essence of Bhagavad Gita is to apply Krishna's message. And why is there a clear distinction between scholar and devotee? The difference between scholar and devotee is the scholar knows the theory. And the devotee knows how to apply that theory to our life. So when you go to school and college, you have a theory and a practical. Okay, the theory gives you the concepts, but the practical is where you test and you apply those concepts. And the people who only achieve scholarly benefit, they have not achieved the transcendental blessings because they do not actually understand it. It is said in the Upanishad that if you have full faith in Guru and full faith in Krishna, then you will understand everything you read in the Vedic literatures. In the same way, without chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we will not be able to understand the concept of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. Many years ago, Shiksha Guru had told me that chanting is very important because I was more inclined to reading. And chanting is super important because the process of chanting is Cheto Darpana Marjanam. It is going to cleanse my heart, cleanse the mirror of my heart. If I cannot cleanse the mirror of my heart, I will not be able to see clearly. And if I cannot see clearly, I won't know who I am and what my destination is. So we need these blessings in the form of Vidya Vadhu Jivanam. This is our life and soul. The transcendental knowledge is a blessing and our life and soul. The next part is Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. This is saying the next benediction is think of it as an ocean that is increasing day by day. We don't normally experience the ocean increasing day by day, because if that happens, then the land will be completely flooded. But there is an Ananda Buddhi, which means there is an ocean of bliss. We only know about ocean of salt water that exists. Okay, and in the Bhagavatam, there is a reference to different types of ocean of ghee, ocean of milk. And here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is talking about ocean of bliss. So Ananda is transcendental bliss. When we do Sankirtan or chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, this ocean increases and it keeps increasing our pleasure potency. That's why we say when we initially start chanting, we don't have the taste, it is repetition. But over time, we start enjoying to chant. That is when we get the taste. So you know at that time, this ocean has started growing. Okay. And Anand means something, a happiness that has no end. It is transcendental happiness, which has no end. Material happiness has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But Ananda has no end, and Ananda is ever increasing. The next part is Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam. Pratipadam means at every step. And Purna means full. So here full can be considered as complete, or full can be considered as we are talking about the full moon. As the ocean, as the waxing moon keeps getting bigger and bigger, what is the ultimate? The ultimate is the full moon. So Purnamrita means the Amrit is similar to Ananda. Amrit is deathless nectar. So by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna Mahamantra is Purna Amrita, complete deathless nectar. Okay. And then it says Aswadanam. That means at every step, we are getting closer and closer to tasting complete deathless nectar. And finally, from the first verse, it says Sarvatma Snapanam. Sarvatma Snapanam, here it means when we bathe ourselves, in the morning, we feel very fresh, right? And very relieved. In the same way, chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is like bathing the soul. So it refreshes and cleanses the soul. So the translation of this first verse is, let there be all victory, okay, for the chanting of the holy name of Lord Krishna, which can cleanse the mirror of the heart and stop the miseries of blazing fire of material existence. That chanting is the waxing moon that spreads the white lotus of good fortune for all living entities. It is the life and soul of all education. The chanting of the holy name of Krishna expands the blissful ocean of transcendental life. And what does the ocean do? It gives a cooling effect to everyone and enables one to taste full nectar at every step. So one of the reasons why I love the Shikshashtakam prayers, and my realization here is, it's not just because we are studying the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya himself is giving the translation and the purport for these Shikshashtakam prayers. So this makes this chapter so wonderful that we are getting the purport directly from the author himself. Just as Srila Prabhupada points out, that the author of Vedanta Sutra, Vyasadeva, wrote his own commentary on Vedanta Sutra, okay, which we know as Srimad Bhagavatam. And because it is composed by the same author, the commentary is absolutely perfect. So just as Srimad Bhagavatam is perfect, because there is no author, because the author himself is giving the commentary, this chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita is the ultimate perfection of Chaitanya Charitamrita, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has given the purport and the commentary for this. And it is said that the result of chanting, I heard a very good verse actually the other day. They said, what is the ultimate result of chanting? I know we read in many places that the result of chanting is that it awakens one's love for Krishna and the taste for transcendental bliss. And then the next thing is, the question that came up is, what is the goal of chanting? So we understand the result of chanting is awakening our love for Lord Krishna, but the goal of chanting is chanting. The goal itself is what we are doing. So it is not like we will keep chanting now, and when we reach the spiritual abode, we say, okay, I've achieved my goal, spiritual abode, so I'm done. The chanting is not just the process. Chanting is the process and the goal, which is why it is so important to start that practice now. So moving on to the next verse, one second, let me, where did my screen go? Oh. Yeah. So we'll cover just the 2 verses because we don't have time to cover all 8 verses. So in the second verse, before the second verse, Krishnadas Kaviraj, who is the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, lamenting, he comments. And basically, Krishnadas Kaviraj has put in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life and had commentaries a little bit in the Shikshashtakam. He says, lamentation and humility awoke within Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he began reciting another one of his own verses. By hearing the meaning of that verse, one can forget all unhappiness and lamentation. And that is this next verse that we are going to study. Nam namakare bahuda nija sarva shaktis तत्रापिता नियमिता स्मरणेन काला एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवान् ममापि दुर्दैवम् ईदृशम् इहाजनेनानुरागा. The translation of this verse is, my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, your holy name, in your holy name, there is all good fortune for the living entity, and therefore you have many names, such as Krishna and Govinda, by which you expand yourself. You have invested, this is a very important part of this verse, you have invested all your potencies in those names, and there are no hard and fast rules for remembering them. My dear Lord, although you bestow such mercy upon fallen, conditioned souls by liberally, I like this word, liberally teaching your holy names, Krishna has given us so much freedom of chanting the holy names. I am so unfortunate that I still commit offenses while chanting the holy name, and therefore I do not achieve attachment for chanting. This is a question that comes up almost every Sunday, or at least once a month or once in 2 weeks, that I am chanting, but I am not feeling the taste. I am not feeling the attachment to chanting the holy names. And even this verse says, yes, this is the age of Kali, where it is very easy on one hand to achieve salvation. It is the easiest. A lot of Devi Devtas in Swargaloka want to take birth in the age of Kali because they know it is the easiest age to achieve liberation and going back to Krishna. But it is also, as they say, that your mind can be your best friend or your biggest friend or your biggest enemy. And that is because we are surrounded by so many distractions in this day and age, that we are constantly feeling the pull away from the holy name. So Lord Chaitanya continues with his purport. And Lord Chaitanya is saying this, even though he is the Lord himself, Even he feels, he's saying this to teach us that even he's feeling this separation from the holy name. So what to talk of us? The underlying message is, yes, you are going to feel that, and you are going to continue feeling that, but that is no reason to give up. We still have to chant, and we have to try every day to chant better than the day before, chant with more focus than the day before. So Lord Chaitanya continues with his purport. Because people vary in their desires, you have distributed your holy names by your mercy. We know how many desires we have at any given point in time. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I have to be merciful and I have to make this examination very easy for them. He says, regardless of time or place, one who chants the holy name, even while eating or sleeping, attains all perfection. For those who are Brahmanas, you know that there are regulations for chanting the Gayatri mantra. You can talk to many Brahmanas and they have regulations for chanting other mantras. But this is a mantra that was given freely without any conditions. And regardless of any conditions, you could be in any state of body, any state of mind, and any state of activity. But if you are chanting the holy name all the time, you will attain full perfection. Then it says, you have invested your full potencies in each individual holy name, which means Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is just the mantra. But whether you call Krishna as Govinda, whether you call Krishna as Kanha, whether you call Vishnu, in whatever name you call, Krishna has invested his own self in his name. So, but I am so unfortunate, even though Krishna, we know Krishna has invested, we know chanting the Maha Mantra is direct connection with Krishna. It is hotline to Krishna. But I am so unfortunate, and we are all struggling through this misfortune that we don't have attachment to the holy names. We finish our rounds and we're like, okay, done, I'll chant tomorrow. And I'm not speaking for everybody, but many of us do that. But how do we get Krishna in our consciousness? That is why this is called Krishna consciousness. Whether I'm driving my car, or whether I'm eating, or whether I'm cooking, or whether I'm working, how can I constantly remember and, where possible, loudly chant Krishna's name? But I am so unfortunate that I have no attachment to your holy names. O Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Raya, Lord Chaitanya is talking to them and saying, hear from me the symptoms of how one should chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to awaken very easily one's dormant love for Krishna. So it is true, we all have love for Krishna, and we all have inherent love for Krishna. That is what brings the goodness out of us. But what we don't understand is how to connect back with Krishna. And here, these first two verses are, all verses of Shikshashtakam are equally important. But I think the order in which these 8 verses have been laid out is even more important, because this order is saying how we first cleanse our heart, extinguish the fire of material desires, start chanting. It becomes that ocean of bliss and knowledge. And then reminding ourselves that the names of Krishna has full potency, no different from Krishna himself. Okay. So we are very unfortunate that we are not attached to the names of Krishna, but we have to. We have to take this very seriously, and we have to say every morning when we start our chanting, Krishna, please give me the support. Please give me the inspiration. Please give me the knowledge. And please give me the ability to chant with more focus and attention and better than I did yesterday. I'm going to end with this verse. Krishna Varanam Visha Krishnam Sangopang Astra Parsadam Yajnai Sankirtana Prayer Yajantihi Medhasa. The translation is, in this age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of God, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Who's that? Lord Chaitanya. Although his complexion is not blackish, because Lord Chaitanya came in the golden avatar, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. So, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Let us all chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you very much, and wishing everybody a very happy Gaur Purnima.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. That was simply wonderful, Mataji.
Mataji, I'm trying to switch screen. 1 minute. Please bear with me. This is
no worries, Mataji. Take your time. Thank you so much, Mataji. That was so beautiful. You said the significance of Shishtastakam prayers and then in depth about chanting and the significance of chanting and how we should chant and what chanting does to us. It is just so inspiring, Mataji. Chanting cleanses our heart, it brings all auspiciousness, and it's very important for us to develop that sincerity and seriousness in chanting. We are so fortunate we have it, and we really have to get serious and develop that taste in chanting. Thank you, Mataji. That was really wonderful.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So, devotees, next we have the second part of this pre-celebration. Today we have Prashanth Prabhu. Prabhu is going to read the pastime, present the pastime of Chaitanya Charitamrita's Adi Leela, chapter 16, Kishore Leela. Hare Krishna, Prashanth Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. We will get started, devotees. I want to thank Satyasara Prabhu, just for the Mataji, Vina Mataji, for this opportunity. I'm not qualified, and this is the first time I'm reading, parts of Chaitanya Charitamrita, but thank you for the opportunity, and I'm doing this service for my purification. Please forgive me if I make any offenses. We will start with a quick prayer. Om Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavad Paschati Deshtarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gauramita. And then we will also read Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pranams. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvashi Namaha. And which translates to, O most magnificent incarnation, you are Krishna himself, appearing as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden color of Srimati Radharani, and you are widely distributing pure love of Krishna. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. We have Gaura Purnima coming up, which is where we celebrate the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And like Meena Mataji said, and Suvarna Manjari Mataji said, it's a wonderful auspicious occasion because Mahaprabhu has given us the greatest weapon of all that will deliver us in this age of Kali, which is the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And he's shown us the best way for developing a loving relationship with the Supreme Lord, just like Srimati Radharani did, which is through unconditional, unmotivated devotional service. It's joyfully performed and everlasting. So today I will cover a portion of the pastimes from his childhood and youth, which is from chapter 16, Adi Leela, from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Chaitanya Charitamrita is written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is, he's summarizing the various different works from his gurus and other disciples of associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's giving us some key incidents from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life that we can focus on. So there are many things that happen in this chapter, but there are two main things where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meets Tapana Mishra, and then where the Lord interacts with Keshava Kashmiri. So there are many other pastimes, in this, like I said, in this period, but those are the two that Krishnaraj Kaviraj Goswami focuses on. So we will start with the background of this chapter, which is Kishora Lila, and Kishora means adolescence, the prime of youth. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is turning just 11 years old. So if we think back to when we were 11, I don't remember much, but that's the mood that that's the age that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was. And by this age, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was already married to Lakshmi Devi, and he was already known as Nimai Pandita, and Pandita because he had mastered the Sanskrit language. And Srila Prabhupada and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explained that Sanskrit is very intricate and take lifetime to master. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was able to learn all the rules and intricacies just by hearing them once. And Prabhupada explains that a student was supposed to study grammar for 12 years in the beginning of his life, Sanskrit grammar, and before you can become an expert. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is 11 years old and he's already earned the title, and he's so well versed that by this age he's already teaching other students. And many students come from all over India and the region, and come to where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to hear from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and to hear his explanations. And throughout this time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is having many discourses about scripture. He's defeating many scholars, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, but he did it in a way that was very gentle and not boasting. So even though like these other people may have been defeated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a boy, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was gentle and he was not boasting or domineering. They were convinced that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was kind and was truly a wonderful person. So in this time, the Lord goes to East Bengal, where he starts preaching the Sankirtana movement. And Prabhupada explains that this is basically the start of the Sankirtana movement, where the Lord is going and preaching. And he says that is the main goal of preachers and of devotees everywhere, is to introduce the Sankirtana movement to everyday people. That's the real goal and what the real purpose of scholars and teachers. Srila Prabhupada says that it's not just preaching isn't just defeating other philosophies or defeating other scholars and making them feel bad. That's not the occupation, but it's rather to, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does, is to introduce them to the movement so that they can start their journey back to Godhead. So while he was, my Pandita is, he's away from Navadvip and he's teaching in East Bengal, he meets a Brahmana named Tapana Mishra, who was a scholar. But this scholar was a bookworm, and in verse 11 it says, bookworm is someone who's reading many books and scriptures and hearing many commentaries and the instructions of many men. But all of this will produce doubt in our heart. So Tapana Mishra was a bookworm in the sense that he was reading so many things, he was hearing so many commentaries, but because he was being instructed by many different philosophies, but because of all this, he was going on too many paths, and he didn't understand what the true goal of life is. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, those who are attracted to studying many kinds of literature concerning various subject matters, especially fruitive activities and philosophical speculation, are deprived of unalloyed devotional service because of their splayed attention. So, what means for me, what I took away is, we have to have that point of focus that Krishna is supreme, and that the path that we are on, the path to bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness, is the only path that we should follow, because we could be a bookworm, and we could be attracted to the flowery language of the Vedas, but if we do that, then we will have doubt in our heart always, and we won't be able to feel the unalloyed devotional service, because we'll be focusing on fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. Our mind will be everywhere, and we won't have that focus on performing devotional service. The real goal, right, that is Krishna Bhakti. So Tapana Mishra had a dream, and where a Brahmana told him, Tapana Mishra was not able to understand what the goal of life is, right? So he's meditating, and he had a dream where a Brahmana told him that he should go meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was in East Bengal at the time, and that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can give him proper direction. So he goes to the Supreme Lord, and he explains his dream, and the Lord says, the object of life. He explains the object of life and the process for attaining it. And he says, the basic principle of success is to chant the holy name of the Lord, which is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes it very clear. He says the basic principle of success, and that's what we can take away, is to chant the holy name of the Lord. And Suvarna Manjari Mataji also is explaining it from Srishtastakam that that's the foundation. So this whole movement is based on the instruction that we have to chant the holy name of the Lord regularly, and in accordance with what Guru's prescribed principles. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, chanting 16 rounds, performing devotional service, associating with devotees, reading books, eating only prasadam, honoring only prasadam. So that's the goal. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives this goal to Tapana Mishra, and he says, you must fix your mind on chanting the holy name. Like this, the Lord transforms many people in East Bengal, and initiates them into the Sankirtana movement, right? And and he's doing this just at the age of 11, right? And our goal right now is to continue that movement, and Srila Prabhupada is continuing it through ISKCON, and that's our purpose as well. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, Kalo nasti eva gatir anyata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. There's no other way, no other way, no other way. And so we don't have any other way. So then, while the Lord is in East Bengal, Lakshmi Devi was, with her in-laws, with Sachimata, and she was very unhappy in home with in separation from her husband, and so strong was her separation that she passes away, and she goes back to Godhead. And the Supreme Lord, when this happens, he knows he's the Supreme Lord, so he comes back because to perform the necessary rituals, and then he comes to give solace to his mother Sachi Devi, who was greatly unhappy, and he comes back and he speaks to Sachi Mata on how to overcome the grief and your suffering, and he explains the nature of the soul, and we from Bhagavad Gita we know 2.13 Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tata dehantara prapte dhiras tatra na muyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. So, he explains to his mother, you should not be attached to the body, you should not be attached to the relationships of the body, and that those are temporary. And, like this, he educates many, many people, and he shares the wisdom of, Lord Krishna, and he um, reestablishes the lineage. He then marries Vishnupriya, the goddess of fortune, and then at the same time, while he's engaging his disciples and teaching them, he meets Keshava Kashmiri. So Keshava Kashmiri is a great scholar and champion of learning. He was a philosophical-minded person, and he was known all over India for defeating other scholars. And after defeating everybody else, he came to Navadvip to challenge the scholars in Navadvip. At that time, Navadvip was, a very scholarly place and was the center of all of this scholarly discussion and philosophical discussion and religious discussion. So he comes there finally, and he's from the Nimbarka Sampradaya, and Kashmiri achieved the title of Dig Vijaya, Vijayi, which means one who has conquered all directions. And he was a great devotee of Goddess Saraswati, and he was very favored by Goddess Saraswati. So so one day, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is discussing with the students on the bank of the Ganges, and Keshava Kashmiri comes to talk to him because he's heard of Nimai Pandita, and he wants to challenge Nimai Pandita. So he comes in an arrogant mood. He comes with he comes with pride. He wants to defeat Nimai Pandita, show that he's the great scholar, and that he's better than everybody else. So he's very inconsiderate to the Lord. He says, I understand that you're a teacher of grammar and that your name is Nimai Pandita. People speak very highly of your teaching of beginner's grammar. So immediately, he starts by putting down Mahaprabhu. He says he's just a teacher of beginner's grammar. Then he says, I understand that you teach Kalapa Vyakarana, which is one of the most complicated grammars. And then he says, I heard that your students are very expert in the word jugglery of this grammar. And he challenges Mahaprabhu. He says, he's saying, oh, you're so great, prove it. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, however, very, very humble, right? And he says, yes, I'm known as a teacher of grammar, but factually I cannot impress my students with grammatical knowledge, nor can they understand me very well. My dear sir, whereas you are a very learned scholar in all sorts of scriptures and are very much experienced in composing poetry, I am only a boy, a new student, and nothing more. Therefore, I desire to hear your skill in composing poetry. We could hear this if you would mercifully describe the glory of Mother Ganges. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is tactfully setting up, Ishwar Kashmiri. Um, he's saying, "Oh, I'm just a student. I don't know very much, but you're a great scholar. Please enlighten us with a poem of Mother Ganges, because they were in the banks of Mother Ganga." So he says, um, Keshava Kashmir becomes puffed up, and then he, within 1 hour, he composes 100 verses of Mother Ganga and recites them. And after hearing all the verses, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, "There's no greater poet, sir. There is no greater poet than you in the entire world. Your poetry is so difficult that no one can understand it, but you and Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. But if you explain the meaning of one verse, we can all hear it from your own mouth and thus be very happy." And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu picks one verse out of this 100 and then recites it to Keshava Kashmiri. And Keshava Kashmiri was surprised because he recited 100 verses, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is remembering one of them. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, just like some people are great poets, I have this, he is endowed with Shruti Dara and can memorize perfectly, ability to memorize perfectly. So then the Lord says to Keshava Kashmir, "Now kindly explain the special qualities and faults in the verse." Um, and now Keshava Kashmir is perplexed. Oh, there's no faults in the verse. He says, he says there's no faults. I composed everything perfectly. And the Lord again sees he's very humble, and he doesn't want to anger anybody, and he wants to be very tactful. He says, "I may say something to you if you will not become angry. Can you explain the faults in this verse? There is no doubt your poetry is full of ingenuity, and certainly it has satisfied the Supreme Lord. But if we scrutinizingly consider it, we can find both good qualities and faults. Now, therefore, let us carefully scrutinize this verse." And Keshava Kashmiri is still adamant that there's nothing wrong with the verse. And he tells Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "You're just an ordinary student of grammar. There's no way you can find any faults in this verse." And even then, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is still like the verse, right? Tirnada Pisinu Chaina, Taropi Taishnuna, Amani Nana Manadena, Itaneas Laharis, thinks himself lower than the lowest blade of glass. He's still humble. He's not puffed up. He says, "Because I'm not at your level, I have asked you to teach me by explaining the faults and good qualities. Certainly, I have not studied the art of literacy embellishments, but I've heard it from higher circles, and thus I can review this verse and find many faults and many good qualities." Finally, Keshava Kashmiri, he relents and he asks the Lord to explain. And the Lord says, "No, there are 5 faults and 5 literary ornaments. I shall state them one after another. Kindly hear me and give me your judgment." And there's many, many, many verses, and I am no expert in Sanskrit grammar, and so I won't go into any of these. But there's many, many verses where Prabhupada explains, and he explains in the purport what each rule is and why the rule is why the rule was not met. And then but he explained, Prabhupada explains for us, but here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going into all of these um, faults and ornaments, and to uh, he's saying these to Keshava Kashmiri, and he finally says, if there are 10 literary ornaments in a verse, but even one faulty expression, the entire verse is nullified. One's beautiful body may be decorated with jewels, but one spot of white leprosy makes the entire body abominable. As one's body, although well decorated with ornaments, is made unfortunate even by one spot of white leprosy, so an entire poem is made useless by a fault, despite alliteration, similes, and metaphors. So the Lord concludes by saying, you know, um, no matter how many good qualities one might have, right? If we have one bad quality, then that's it will nullify all the good qualities. And then same thing with our karma, and same thing with our devotional service, right? If we are not 100% in devotional service, um, it's very difficult for us to make continued progress. We have to be fully in devotional service. If we just if we do things haphazardly, where we we have like this, we have 5 literary ornaments and we have 5 faults together, then we are making progress. We are in Krishna consciousness, we're making progress. But if we're diverted and like Tapana Mishra, we are going through on different paths, we're following different instructions, or following different philosophies, then it's the entire our entire progress is hindered. So what we can take away, right, is this: we have to be single focused on devotional service. And at the end of the day, at the end of our life, Krishna, we're depending on Krishna. So if we are not 100% dependent on Krishna and we have some dependence on something else, then that's this one spot of leprosy that's going to keep us back, right? Krishna may out of the mercy of devotees and out of mercy of Krishna, Krishna may oversee that and take us back to Godhead. But if we still have some material attachment, we'll have to come back to get rid of that attachment. So finally, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes on to describe 5 literary embellishments, and embellishments are, basically nuances in Sanskrit grammar where you can do things one way or another. And again, I won't go into these because I don't know the rules. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again then describes these embellishments, and he says, okay, these are the embellishments that you did. And he says, uh, finally, he says, I have discussed all of these 5 gross faults and 5 literary embellishments, but if we consider it in fine detail, we will find unlimited faults. So that it's just like us, right? We may think we have a lot of pride, and we think we have a lot of false ego. I have a lot of false ego, so we think we are the doer, and I think I'm the doer, and that I'm doing this, and I deserve this, I deserve that. But overall, I might think, oh, I'm in Krishna consciousness. I'm reading and I'm chanting or trying to chant nicely and doing all of these things. But if we look closer, we all have many, many different things that we can work on. But we have to be very clear and open with ourselves to understand what those are and then work on them. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then says, you have achieved poetic imagination and ingenuity by the grace of your worshipable demigod, goddess Saraswati. But poetry not well reviewed is certainly subject to criticism. Poetic skill used with due consideration is very pure, and with metaphors and analogies, it is dazzling. So that the Lord basically says, whatever you did, whatever poetry that you composed, it's great, but it's not. It's all subject to criticism because it wasn't done with it was done with pride. It was done with false ego, and it was done with the desire to you know um, belittle the Lord, belittle Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But instead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's a supreme Lord. He creates a situation such that he Keshwar Kashmiri composes this poem, and then he's revealing all the faults that Keshwar Kashmiri has. So Keshwar Kashmiri is then rendered speechless. Nothing would come from his mouth. Then finally, he's humbled, and he says he understands that Goddess Saraswati is his demigod that he's so attached to has become angry with him because he has offended the lotus feet of the Lord, and he realizes that this boy is not ordinary. So then he asks my Pandita Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how have how have you done this to me? You're not a student and you don't have that much experience, but you're able to explain this. And cheekily, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says it's because Mother Saraswati gave me this knowledge. So Prabhupada explains that it's Mother Saraswati by the Lord's will, who had made Keshava Kashmiri compose such a poor verse, and that made it so that he was humbled. And the Lord has created the situation to humble Keshava Kashmiri. Then Keshava Kashmiri begins to pray to Mother Saraswati, and then at night, the goddess informs him that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the next day, Keshava Kashmiri surrenders completely to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Lord bestows His mercy and on Keshava Kashmiri and cuts off all of his bondage to material attachment. So that was the pastime, and what I took away is one, from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's actions. We can see that how sincere and how much effort and how scholarly we need to be, right? How perfect Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in, taking this one verse and explaining all of these things and doing it in a humble way. That's the same amount of sincerity and effort that we should be putting into all of our devotional service, right? We should be chanting with that much sincerity. We should be reading with that much desire to be scholarly, and we should pay great attention in our devotional service. And that's what I realized and what I took away is, oftentimes I'm reading and I'm doing these things, but it's very at the surface level and very last minute. But we should take the time and sincerity to really understand what the Lord is saying, really understand what devotees are saying, really understand what scriptures are saying, what Srila Prabhupada has told us to do, and do it with great devotion, great attention to detail. So despite Keshava Kashmiri being well known throughout the country, he was defeated by Lord Chaitanya just on one verse, and he ultimately surrenders. So we should never let our pride or desire, um, overpower us, or never let our pride and desire to accumulate knowledge or wealth, cloud our judgment. We should surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord, and we should pray to Lord Chaitanya on this occasion of Gaura Purnima, seek his blessings. So with that, I will conclude my class. Again, thank you, Mataji, for this opportunity. Thank you, devotees, for listening. Please forgive me if I committed any offenses, and thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, that was so inspiring class, so beautiful, so nicely you shared amazing pastimes of Mahaprabhu and so much glorification, so nice, and your realizations. Just 2 points, Prabhu. The pastime you shared, Keshava Kashmir Pandit meeting Mahaprabhu and how his false ego went and he finally surrendered to the Supreme Lord. That was very beautiful, Prabhu, very nicely narrated, very relatable. Also, you shared your realizations. So, yes, we have to be very careful and really, really grasp all the instructions and not just like take it, take from one ear, leave from the other ear kind of a thing. We have to definitely be very sincere and serious. And in the beginning, you mentioned about how the real goal is Krishna Bhakti, accepting Krishna as a Supreme Lord and surrendering to Him and having that devotion and love to Him. That was very beautiful, Prabhu. And finally, if we are not 100% in this devotional life, then our progress will be hindered. We will not achieve our goal. It can't be like Satyasara Prabhu says, hodgepodge kind of thing. Little I'll do whenever I want and not do other times. So that won't work. It has to be all the time. So amazing presentation, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you for presenting today. Devotees, thank you all for joining. Quick announcement before we end the program here. Tomorrow morning is Holi celebration at the temple. It starts at 11 a.m. Looking forward to having a joyous festival with all of you all. And another important announcement, tomorrow's pre-celebration program will be at 5 p.m., not our regular 7 p.m., because devotees are very busy with Gaura Purnima preparation. So tomorrow is going to be 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. See you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna.